my game is...
There is no...
Are you that guy? Do your teammates make fun of you for your trash aim? Do you play Siege on a PC that looks and acts more like a toaster than a PC? Well, good news, I can fix 2 of those issues for you. Hello, I'm English Pastry, and I'm going to be giving you guys 4 easy tips to improve your gun skill in any FPS game, including on console. Let's go. By the way, if you guys like this kind of content, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe. Anyways, the first tip to better aim is one that I find to be very underrated. That is consistency. There are a couple types of consistency you need to have when playing an FPS game, but the first I'm going to talk about is body position consistency. Now, what do you mean by that, Pastry? The first thing you need to understand is what aim really is. Your aim is muscle memory. When you train your aim, you're building your muscle memory. Once you build that muscle memory up to a point, every time you see a head somewhere on your screen, you'll know exactly how much force to put into your mouse and exactly where to swipe the mouse to. Same goes with the joystick on a controller. The thing is, when you build muscle memory, if you change your arm position, your chair position, monitor position, your mouse grip in any way, that'll completely change how much force you'll need to put into your mouse and the joystick, and your aim will evidently be off. It might be just a little bit off, or you could be off by a mile. All those hours of building muscle memory will be put to waste if you constantly change your position. For console players, this is actually fairly easy. All you have to really worry about is how far you're sitting away from your monitor or TV. Finding the same controller grip is super easy because you'll usually just do what is most comfortable for you. Or you'll do your claw or whatever other controller grips. And plus, because of the way the controller is shaped, it makes it easy for you to find the same grip consistently. Now for all my PC players out there, this is where it gets more difficult. Your first order of business is to find a mouse grip for you. I'm personally a claw guy, but whether you use claw, fingertip, or palm, you just need to practice finding the exact hand position every time. You want the mouse to feel the same in your hand every single time you grip it. Once you find your grip, I recommend you take note of where your palm touches the mouse, if at all, and exactly where your fingers touch the mouse. I even do this myself. I take a couple of pictures to actually make sure I'm getting my hand to the same exact position every time. Once you find that mouse grip and consistently can get it, that's when you move on to your mouse position. You want to set up some sort of starting position on your mouse pad where your mouse will always start. I recommend you put just like a small piece of tape on your mouse pad where your mouse will always start. Before every round, just make sure you bring your mouse into that position. But that's not all. Next, you gotta position your chair correctly. I personally use my keyboard as a landmark. I usually line up the Windows key on my keyboard to the armrest of my chair. Along with that, you want to be the same distance away from your monitor. Again, you can use tape or other landmarks to be able to find that position consistently. It might seem kinda tedious, but make sure you just have consistent positions for all your body parts. Whether it's like your feet, your arms, your legs, it doesn't really matter, just you want it to be consistent to get the best aim. And like I said on this channel before, just get creative with it. And always remember, when finding a position, you just want to be comfortable. Finding a comfortable chair position, a comfortable mouse grip, you just want to be comfortable, because that'll make it the easiest to get into that position consistently, and it'll also make you more relaxed when you're aiming. Now let's talk about the other side of consistency, using the same sensitivity. From the beginning, you want to choose one sensitivity and stick with that sensitivity. You really don't want to change your sensitivity, even when your aim is feeling terrible that day, and you feel like changing will help. Now I'll admit, not too long ago I actually switched to a lower sensitivity. I seemed to play really well at first, but there were a ton of growing pains when it came to me getting used to the sensitivity. I know I'm contradicting myself what I just said, but the reason I did it is because I had a really small mousepad before and I had to run a high sense. Now I got a large mousepad, so I lowered my sensitivity so I can make finer adjustments easier. If you ever decide it's necessary to change your sensitivity, you just need to make sure there's a justifiable reason you're doing it. Because every time you change your sensitivity, you have to build a whole new set of muscle memory, and that takes time. Now I'm just going to take a minute to talk about your sensitivity, because everybody talks about finding your sensitivity, not copying the pros or whatever. But the truth is about finding your sensitivity, all it does is speed up the process to build muscle memory, because the sensitivity already feels pretty natural. You don't really need to find your sensitivity though. Realistically, you could, after a ton of practice, get used to an insanely fast sense. Will it be good? No, and I highly recommend that you don't do that. Finding your sensitivity would be best if you can, but it's not absolutely necessary. Would you guys like to see me make a guide on finding your sensitivity? You can vote probably in the top right corner. Now that was a lot of talk about consistency, but quick recap: have consistency with your body position and grip, and run the same sensitivity. Moving on to the next tip, I'm going to talk about aim training. There are many different ways to do this, and one way is by using dedicated aim trainers. Of course, you can only get this on PC. Sorry, console players. There are many good ones out there like Kovacs, or in the background I'm going to be using this free one on Steam called Aim Labs, if you're a cheapo like me. You might have to use an online sensitivity converter to convert your sense to put it in game, but all you have to do is just put your sense in the settings, and then you can choose from all the hundreds of options and playlists. I'll advise you on one thing when it comes to aim trainers. They're a lot different than training in game. I would highly recommend using aim trainers if you're new to PC or just new to aiming on a mouse and keyboard, or if you're just using a new sense. But once you get to a point, you'll improve a lot more of the game by just playing the game. Whether you play multiplayer matches or you just use training grounds like T-Hunt and Rainbow Six Siege, you'll understand the game mechanics more that can't be taught in these aim trainers. And that brings me to console players, because you guys don't have these aim trainers. In that case, I would highly recommend using in-game training, like T-Hunts or training grounds in Rainbow Six Siege. Grinding training grounds will be more than adequate enough for you to see huge improvements in your aim. But you want to play T-Hunts in a specific way. You don't want to play them just to win. You want to focus on one thing each time you play. Maybe one time you focus just on tracking, another time use crosshair placement, maybe possibly flicking another time. Don't be afraid to die. In fact, if there is a room full of terrorists, I just recommend you just charge in there and see how many you can take out. Also, when you're training your aim, you can spend hours grinding it and improving aim, but also just a simple 10-minute warm-up before you play can also serve a purpose and improve your aim. Actually, let me know down in the comments below, what's your training routine? And also, if you want me to make a guide on training routines, let me know that as well. And while you're down there, that big red subscribe button is looking pretty enticing, am I right? Anyways, just remember, when you're training, always train with a purpose. Don't just go through the motions and dilly-dally your way through it. Moving on to the next tip, which I talked about slightly, that being crosshair placement. You might see pro players and all these great players with these insane flicks and whatnot, but the truth is crosshair placement will always win. Maybe try this in a custom game. If you have your crosshair position on someone's head, and that player has a crosshair anywhere else that's not on your head, and has a flick there, you will win that gunfight every single time. Having great crosshair placements will win you more gunfights. And to improve this, just like I said before, you can do T-Hunts. What you want to do though in T-Hunts is to be aiming down sights the whole time. You want your crosshair to be positioned on terrorists' heads that you don't need a flick. That's your goal. Another way to practice this is just do it in game. Focus on keeping your crosshair at head level so that if you see someone or someone walks in your crosshair, you'll be there to click and get a headshot. No flick will beat that. A couple of tips in crosshair placement. Knowing your maps will help. If you know where there is cover and where light enemies are likely to be located and peeking, it makes it so much easier to just place your crosshair there and peek out and pre-fire. And you're not going to give the enemy a chance to return fire due to peeker's advantage. Another tip, when aiming down sights, you want to be aiming chest to head height at all times because of the one-shot headshot mechanic in Siege. And do this especially when peeking quarters. I said chest to head height because a lot of times players might be crouch walking or just crouched, and if you aim your crosshair at head height, sometimes your casing of your sight will cover up the enemy. So to just quickly sum crosshair placement up, practice that over flicks. It will win. Alright, now the final tip I'm going to be talking about is recoil control. You won't believe how many gunfights you lose because you can't control the recoil. Now there are a couple of ways that you can improve this aspect of your game. The first and easiest is to just add the right attachments to your gun. A quick overview of attachments, starting with muzzle attachments. On most guns you have the choice between muzzle brake, compensator, flash hider, suppressor, and extended barrel. For suppressor, all it really does is make your gun quieter, but reduces the damage, so I don't recommend running that. Now extended barrel, what that does is just lowers the damage fall off, so if you plan on getting long range engagements it can be useful, but for most guns I don't recommend running that either. Now what muzzle brake does is reduce a lot of vertical kick. For all semi-auto weapons, muzzle brake is the way to go. I would also run it on Buck's AR and maybe Mavericks because they have a lot of vertical recoil. Now compensator, what it does is reduce all the horizontal recoil. For any gun that has kicks to the left or right at all, compensator can be an easy fix to this. Now lastly, flash hider. It's the middle ground between compensator and muzzle brake. I would use it on weapons that have minimal horizontal recoil because horizontal recoil is a lot harder to control than vertical recoil. So if there is, maybe quite a bit, then I'd highly recommend running compensator. Now grips, there are only 2 of them and it's pretty simple which each one does. A vertical grip simply reduces vertical recoil. I'd run this on any gun that you have trouble controlling the recoil on. And for angled grip, all it does is let you ADS faster. There are no recoil benefits, just simply ADS speed. Now, which one you should run should depend on the gun and your recoil control. If your recoil control is pretty good on a specific weapon that doesn't have a ton of recoil, running angled grip probably would be best for you, because it does give you an advantage in gunfights. If you only sacrifice a little recoil control for this advantage, definitely take that trade-off. Like everything, I just recommend you experiment and find what works for you, not what works for me. Now once you've figured out the attachments, the next step is to practice. It's super simple to practice as well, at least with attack weapons. All you need to really do is go into a T-hunt and practice shooting at a solid wall. I recommend doing this on a house on this fence. And once you run out of ammo, you can just hit up one of the supply bins and do it again. Now for defender weapons, you can do defend the hostage T-hunts. You'd still get practice, but it won't be the exact same. There isn't really any alternative yet besides just playing the game and focusing on your recoil control. Now what I talked about in this video were some great tips to improve your aim, but if you really want to take your game to the next level and learn exactly how to play each operator in Siege, check out this playlist right over here on the left. That's great, I don't even need an outro because I know you're going to be watching that playlist, right?